On the first day of Christmas, my true love gave to me a partridge in a pear tree. On the second day of Christmas, my true love gave to me 2 turtle doves and a partridge in a pear tree.
Merry Christmas!
Ah, the Mirthmobile.
I think we'll go with a little
Mixtape Monday.
Excellent to each other. Party on, dudes!
party on!
Party on, Wayne!
Party on, Gar.
All right. Hello, everybody, and welcome to the last Mixtape Mondays of 2023. Apparently, I really screwed up on my calendar and scheduling this. It would have been smarter to probably do this last week, and then today could have been a year-end wrap-up, Christmas, whatever. But here we are. We're talking about Nirvana's MTV Unplugged performance from 30 years ago.
Yeah.
But very quick before we go through the chat, I am joined by my, I think now we're calling it my alternate universe dad or my bizarro dad, Roman of the Empire. How the hell are you on this?
I'm doing well. Thank you for having me for this one. We talk. You and I talk music all the time. This one was like Blair. I was there again about 3,000 years ago when this originally aired.
I really need to. I need to pull that clip and have that saved in here, ready to go. But
I'm excited. I rewatched this again for the first time in a long time, and I have a lot to talk about with this what I will call. I know Matt prefers the Alice in Chains one, but this was for me the crown jewel of the Unplugged.
They're
series.
They're both the Nirvana and the Alice in Chains too. Like they were both really, really great, very special performances. But maybe I'll have to look up when that one, because that's gotta probably also be either 93 or 94. Actually, no, I take it back. That was 96. Yeah, because it was after they did their self-released album, and the band had kind of fizzled for a while, and then they came back because Lane Staley was already so messed up by that point. So yeah, you're right. We got a little ways to go before an anniversary for that one. But yeah, always good to have you. And then Blair, so good to see you, Blair. I think this is actually the first time I've been on a stream or on a panel with you since we actually all met out in the wild in the real world. So so it's good to see you again. It was so much fun hanging out, in person, actually really being able to cheers beers and talk. But how are you doing, my friend?
I'm doing well. I'm on the mend. I'm off work until the beginning of next year, so I'm just basically hanging out, shaking it easy.
Awesome.
Yeah, it was a great time when we met. A lot of beers to drink.
Yeah.
Yes.
And good times were had. But real quick before we move along, we have our good friend to the north, Devin, Mr. Salmon Outdoors, here to stir the pot as always. We have Jacob Ironside. Welcome, sir. Always good to see you. Thanks for being here in the chat. We got Lady Marine, who apparently is still trying to get home from work, but tuning in on her phone in the meantime.
Hello, guys.
We have Cajun Corey. Hello, sir. Good to see you as well. And, of course, Matt, thank you so much for tuning in. Thank you for being here. Yes, we definitely have a lot to say about both this Nirvana performance. I'm sure there'll be lots of commentary added in about equally the Alice in Chains performance. But I'll try to keep it on track because I know we kind of have some limited time as far as keeping this train going. But thank you guys all so much for tuning in and for being here. So we have the Nirvana MTV Unplugged in New York performance to talk about. So it was filmed on, and it's actually funny. I just got to help kind of promote this a little bit. I did just a YouTube short on Saturday, at 30th anniversary of the special airing. Because I have the vinyl here, which I think Roman also has his handy. Picked this up a couple years ago from a local secondhand record store here. So I just did a quick little YouTube short of me putting the record on and saying, hey, we're going to be talking about this on Monday, but today, Saturday, the 16th, was the 30th anniversary. Someone just commented on it before we started the stream. It goes, well, actually, I think it was November 18th. Well, I'm looking at the Wikipedia page. It says it was filmed on November 18th, 1993. It aired on MTV December 16th, 1993.
So they've
December
re-released this
16th.
album, by the way. If you don't have it, they've re-released the vinyl, I think probably for the 30th anniversary. So it is out there in the wild again. Go find it.
Interesting. Yeah, because here what I'm looking at, it says released because it was filmed and aired in 1993, but they didn't actually release like the album, like the CD or anything that you could buy until almost a year later. So at that point, he passed in April of 94. It was released originally on CD November 1st of 1994. It says here released November 20th, 2007 on DVD. It doesn't say anything about the re-releases, but if you're saying that's pretty recent.
Yeah, they have it at Target. It's an exclusive, which means it's clever colored vinyl. It's not just black. It's something cool. And I'm a sucker for that stuff because it's I'm old and I like that.
But yeah, originally, like backstage before we got started, we were kind of talking about some of the other performances. I didn't even realize. I think Blair, you pointed out, you said that Kiss had done an MTV Unplugged. So I'm guessing they did that without the makeup, right? Because otherwise that would have been pretty weird. That was during the no makeup phase. Do you imagine just like Kiss in like a full makeup, full costume and everything, but acoustic guitars?
Yeah,
it was all the pyrotechnics and blood spitting.
Yeah, right. Yeah, it was before they got together, and what they did was they brought Ace Frehley back on stage. First time they'd played with him since he got fired / quit the band.
That's crazy.
And that got them really talking about coming back together, and then boom, they brought Peter Criss back in. Then Kiss makeup, early '90s. Was a thing.
And Peter Criss, he had a rough ride too. Because I think he was the first one to go, if I'm not mistaken, and they replaced him with Eric Carr, the drummer. Of course, the drummer. Peter Criss was the drummer. I'm very old. You have to forgive me. But yeah. So and then Frehley went like sometime later on. So to have all those guys, So this was a unique series, the Unplugged series. If you'll remember, it was spawned by a performance by a band that I still hate, Bon Jovi. It was like an MTV award show. It was John Bon Jovi and whomever the guitar player is. I don't know because I don't like Bon Jovi. They just sat on stage and played an acoustic version of Dead or Alive. And it was such a big thing that's where the whole Unplugged series was. The genesis was that event. Fucking Bon Jovi.
So and it's kind of funny, like one of the first notes I have here on my notes about this was saying how like the band was actually, Nirvana was reluctant to even do this performance because as we all know, like they famously kind of rejected a lot of the mainstream, not that they weren't happy to be making a living doing something that they loved, but they rejected a lot of the the record labels saying, oh well, to be popular, your song has to only be 3 minutes long, and it has to have a catchy hook, and it has to, and you gotta, be out there and be all bright, shiny, happy people and stuff and everything. And they're just like, well, no, it's like we want to make the music we want to make, and if people like our music, then great, they like it. But it's like they didn't want to conform to what the industry says they have to do. So they said they're kind of reluctant to do the show because it was typically used to promote a new album, to which I guess In Utero had just been released. So they had a new album to promote, but they didn't like the format of how, so like I know Roman, you're not a Pearl Jam fan, whatever, but I remember not too long ago going back and revisiting the Pearl Jam MTV Unplugged, and they pretty much did just do that. Like when they played Even Flow, they played Even Flow the way it sounds on the album, just with acoustic instruments. Like they play, like they didn't make like acoustic renditions of their songs. They just played them as if they were playing them on their electric guitars, but just on acoustic. And Nirvana was like, well, we don't want to do that. We want to do something unique. We want to, you know, do different renditions. They wanted to do deep cuts. They did a bunch of cover songs, and the MTV producers and the executives were just like, what the hell are you guys doing?
Yep.
Like they're doing like cover songs, they're doing deep cuts. Like they totally expected them to just come out and be like, okay, Smells Like Teen Spirit, Come As You Are, you
I'm
know,
so glad they
all
didn't
this
do
stuff,
that.
just like you know.
For
And,
me, honestly, my favorite tracks on this whole thing are the other tracks, the oddball tracks.
covers.
I know About a Girl is a Nirvana track, but he announces it. This is from our first album. No one owns it, and he's not wrong. Bleach was a really, especially at that time, no one knew. Even if you had Teen Spirit, you probably didn't know Bleach. But About a Girl was off of Bleach, and so I mean, but the songs that have the least interest for me are the standard Nirvana songs. The other ones I think are just, they blow me away. They are so interesting.
Yeah.
And what I will say, just in general though, Kurt, and I know he was going through some stuff while this was filming. His voice control.
Oh, we'll get to that. Yeah.
Very, very good.
And this is the perfect opportunity to do deep cuts and,
Yeah.
you know,
Yeah,
new
man.
stuff.
Don't do
You know.
normal shit.
Yeah, don't do the album acoustically. Do a few to appease people. But yeah, this is the perfect
Yeah.
opportunity to take a deep cut off one of your albums. You know, like your like a lot of bands, they have an album that comes out before the big one, but never gets released. It's like your demo. Yeah, your demo stuff. You can rework your demo stuff and change it up a little bit and play it live like this. This is the perfect vehicle for that. And I think that's why the Nirvana one stands out the most. They didn't do just their songs acoustically. They did other stuff. They're musicians, not just corporate.
And
again, the corporate.
And I think that like they
hated that.
chose
Yeah.
the songs that their songs that they chose to do and the covers that they chose to do lent themselves better to the acoustic format. Like we're saying, it's like they could have just come out and been like, we're going to open up with Smells Like Teen Spirit, but on acoustic guitars. And it probably like, okay, they would have pulled it off, but it would have been kind of like, okay, like that just smells
right,
like Teen Spirit on an acoustic guitar.
guitar.
Like,
Yeah, and that corporate didn't like
but
the
you know, it's
corporate
like
thing. Yeah.
they talked about how, you know, the MTV was unhappy with, oh, you guys are, you know, you're supposed to just do your hits, you're supposed to promote the new album or whatever. But then also on top of that, the only guests that they had, so they added in Pat Smear was there on guitar, but I think he had actually been added kind of as like an actual band member at that time. I think he had been touring with them, but I think they had just barely been like, okay, like he's gonna now be like a fourth member, like he's in the band. So Pat Smear was there, later went on to join Dave Grohl in Foo Fighters. But then their guests, the only like special guests they had were the guys from the Meat Puppets, and they did a couple of their songs and then some covers and stuff. And again, MTV is like, no, like you're supposed to have like, you know, Pearl Jam or Alice in Chains or like any other like grunge band that was like relevant. Then they're like, we don't know who these guys are. Like, you can't have these people as your guests. And they're like, but these guys are our friends, so we want to have them on the show. And
and they just came out and took over the instruments. They just because it was just the guitarist and the bass player. Dave still played drums. But it's just the guitarist and the bass player came out. There were
let's see if I can
Chris
instruments. There were a couple of tracks there where Dave played bass. See if I can find the picture. So there's one or two songs where Dave does play bass and guitar.
When homie's playing the freaking accordion, Dave takes over the bass, and he's just doing a bass drum and a snare. He's like a one-man band back there doing that. Like, boom.
And so here's the funny thing too, is like the images of Chris playing the accordion. It's like he's already kind of like a tall, lanky, like goofy looking dude. Anyways, now he's got this accordion strapped onto his chest, and I'm like, God, he's so goofy looking. But yeah, they did kind of do a little bit of a Chinese fire drill on the instruments for some of the guys, and I thought it was interesting too. I read specifically when they did the song Lake of Fire with the guys from the Meat Puppets, Kurt Cobain said he didn't want to change the key to a more comfortable key. Like he said, he wanted to struggle vocally. Like, so that
yeah.
performance that we get from him is him like straining and like struggling to hit those notes. But that was a conscious choice where he's like, I could change the key. He's like, no, he's like, I want it to sound like this. I want this to be like, he wanted to like reach for it.
Well, it's interesting because when they did Pennyroyal Tea, when he starts the song, he's like, am I doing this by myself?
Right.
And he did. He played Pennyroyal Tea. He played the entire song is just him, and the other guys wandered off. I don't know if it was like a smoke break or whatever.
They all took a smoke break.
Really interesting.
But yeah, real quick, Justin. First of all, I think you are. I'm not sure if I've seen you in the chat before, so welcome. Thank you for being here. And yeah, I agree. Like they're big hits. In Bloom, Teen Spirit, all I totally support all of their song choices in this entire performance, because it was like if they had just come out and played their big hits and their videos that were on MTV, it wouldn't have hit the same. It wouldn't have been the same special performance that I think it was. But also, Roman, I think you already kind of touched on it a little bit, where you said Kurt was dealing with some of his own stuff during this performance. So this was one of the times where Kurt Cobain was trying to get sober. So he was going through withdrawals during this performance, so much so that within 24 hours of the performance, because they only had 2 days of rehearsals as far as like on the set, on that stage, 2 days of rehearsals, 24 hours before they were supposed to film, Kurt was like, that's it, I'm not doing it. He just like pulled the plug and was like, I'm not doing it. And then the next day just showed up. Was like, all right, let's do this. But I was trying to find this article and I couldn't find it, because I think I read it when it was like the 25th anniversary of this performance. But I swear I read an article somewhere once that actually said that MTV execs and producers and employees sent people out to get heroin for Kurt just to get him through the performance. And I was like, that is so disgusting. That's like, they're like, we don't care what happens to this guy, we need to film our special. Like,
get him his fix. Come on.
Yeah, no big deal. Just a couple hits, you'll be all right. Just get through the show, and then
Lord,
I believe it.
Oh, 100%. The music industry is disgusting, and that's why I really like following the story of Oliver Anthony, because he's trying to do it himself. He's trying to do it without a record label, and so far he's being successful in doing that. And I'm just like, I'm really, really closely following Oliver Anthony, because I just really hope that the music industry doesn't just like chew him up and spit him out like most people.
Yeah. I think if times had been different, these guys probably would have done something similar. Of course, times, the 90s, the early 90s, that, you didn't have indie music in that same way. If you weren't on a label, you got zero exposure. So
well, yeah, I know, because the internet was still very much in its infancy at this time. But now, I mean, you can self-produce an album, you can self-distribute an album, yeah.
Yeah, I think they would have flourished in this kind of environment now.
Yeah, I know, Justin, I agree, but the
well, then you don't do it special.
The rumors and the stories that I've read about that, I don't know if they ever actually did get him the heroin to get him through the performance, or if he did it while he was having the withdrawals. If he did it while he was withdrawing, then that again makes this all the more important, that he put on this great iconic performance while he was really not in a good place. But I don't know. All I know is I read that like they sent someone out to get drugs for him, but I don't know if they actually like succeeded or if he took them, or I don't know.
I remember that guitar because I remember the guy from Hee Haw had that American flag guitar.
Oh,
not
the one
Rick
that
Clark,
American flag guitar.
the other one. Buck Owens, was that his name?
Buck Owens. Yeah, Buck Owens.
He had a
Yeah, the one
guitar.
with Patch Beer
Like
had been playing
There
that.
you
Yeah,
go.
and that guy from Meat Puppets.
I remember seeing that. I know that guitar. What? But
I always
yeah,
think it's interesting the way Kurt he's playing a right-handed guitar, but he's left-handed, so that's why it's upside down. So he just restrings it as opposed to getting a left-handed guitar, because left-handed
Right,
gets
well,
a
I mean,
pain in the ass. That's one of those
That's
things.
famously, what Jimi Hendrix did. I mean, every picture you see of Jimi Hendrix, he's playing a right-handed Fender Stratocaster that he just strung upside down. Interesting facts about the guitar that Kurt played in this performance it was a see if I can, if there's a good picture in here. Come on, where is it? Gotta be at least one.
That's okay.
We'll just go with that. The guitar that Kurt played was a 1959 Martin D18E, which is a model they still make to this day. But at that point in time, the 1959 ones, they only made about 300 of them in that particular year, where it actually had like the visible pickups and humbuckers on top of the guitar and the volume knobs. Because again, you can kind of see if I had saved a better picture of it, you would have been able to see. But it has volume knobs mounted on the top of the guitar, which is not normal for an acoustic guitar, but they're at the top because it's a right-handed guitar. But they said they only made 300 of them in the year 1959, which is the one Kurt is playing. There's estimated only 25 still in existence today. His daughter, Frances Bean Cobain, was in possession of the guitar and gifted it to a now ex-husband as a wedding gift. The judge upheld the fact that it was given as a gift and he had now legal ownership to it. That jackwagon just went and auctioned it off for over $6 million in 2020.
Yep, I saw that.
And now she's married to Tony Hawk's son.
Yes, also true. The super couple.
No, I heard that this wasn't fully acoustic. I heard that there was an amp on that stage somewhere.
Well, everybody's plugged in. You can see that everybody's plugged in.
Yeah.
So it's not, but to be fair, I mean, you got to have some way for the mics are not necessarily going to pick it up right. If you're going into an input into the amps, you're going to get a better sound that anybody can actually hear. Acoustic, it's a real loose thing when you're dealing with something like this. Going straight acoustic, it just isn't practical. Yeah.
So essentially what that means is, yes, it says unplugged. Obviously there are microphones. Obviously the instruments are plugged in. But what it meant was like, there's no guitar amps on stage. There's no pedals. There's no effects. So a photo that I forgot, I saved it on my phone. I forgot to pull it up. I'm pulling it up on, let's see. Let's do this.
Okay.
There we go. So right there where I have it circled, Kurt Cobain, and that's even a better picture of the guitar. There we go. Now you got the volume knobs are up at the top. It had the pickup switcher. You could even see the humbuckers are literally mounted to the body of the guitar. And that's how Martin made and released this guitar in 1959. So it was often described as Kurt's amp and his pedals as being like his security blanket. He was famously like a pretty shy, pretty introverted guy. So like for him to be the lead singer of a popular band was like kind of an out of character thing for him. So to do this performance, he still wanted to have his pedals and he still wanted to have his amp in front of him. So where I have this circled in this picture, his amp is right in front of him, but they built like a wooden box around it so it would look like part of the set. So you can hear it specifically on when he does a solo on Come As You Are. There's some chorus effect on there. And then especially when they do the David Bowie cover, there's overdrive on his acoustic guitar. So you can hear like he was using pedals. He was using, effects and stuff. So, that's kind of where all of that comes from, where they were like, oh, it wasn't entirely acoustic. It's like, well, it's never going to be completely unplugged, because otherwise how the hell are they going to record the audio and broadcast it on television? They obviously recorded an album and released it as an album on CD, vinyl, DVD, whatever. But yeah, the idea was like, there's no amps, there's no effects. But that was always kind of an interesting fact, that he had to have his pedals and his amp in front of him to feel comfortable.
Well, everybody has their thing. And like I said, it wasn't, to me, it was like, okay, it wasn't a big deal.
No, and I think that's very like a negligible thing to even bring up. But again, everyone wants to nitpick and stuff. Yeah. So Justin pointed out the fuzz guitar during The Man Who Sold the World. Yeah, that was like the most telltale. But funny enough is like, since that performance aired and was released on album, that's like become one of the singles from the live album. Like a local radio station here in San Diego still plays that song almost every single day. Because it was such a good cover of a David Bowie song.
That's the version of the song that I think of in my head when I think of the song. I don't even think of the Bowie version, which is terrible. I think of the Nirvana Unplugged version.
Yeah. And so, too, talking about how like his amp and his pedals were like his security blanket, and like if you just recently rewatched this performance, you notice the whole time he's playing, the whole time he's singing, he's very much like looking down at the ground. He's looking like he never really like looks up at the crowd. He never really looks up at the camera. But one of the most, I think to me, like the most powerful, one of the most iconic moments in the whole performance is the last song, the Where Did You Sleep Last Night? Gets through the whole song and gets that big, really dramatic crescendo at the end. And right when he pauses, where it's like, what's the line? It's like, something, the whole night through, whatever. He pauses for just a moment. And then for the first time in the entire performance, briefly looks up, then looks back down and finishes the line. The whole night through, the band kind of jams for a couple more minutes in that. But this moment is seriously, it's like one of the only times that he looks up and like looks out. Like, it doesn't look directly at the camera, but like actually looks at the audience. And after that moment, they so another interesting fact too that all kind of ties into this is typically when bands would do the unplugged performance, they would do multiple takes. So they would maybe like record the whole performance, or they'd go back and, let's redo that song. Nirvana, I don't know if they were the only band to do it, but they're one of the only bands that the whole 45-minute performance was all done in one take. There were no reshoots. There was no, let's go back and redo that one. Let's get like too. They did the whole thing in one shot as if they were just doing a concert and then walked off stage. Yep. So this moment,
and I think that's the way it should have been done. A one shot.
I would think so.
This is it.
Yeah, because it's like you have
the raw performance.
Practice, rehearse, get ready, like you're putting on a concert, you're putting on a show, whatever. But this moment here, like, okay, they finished with Where Did You Sleep Last Night? It was a big finish for the show, and they walk off stage and they go back, and the producers are arguing with Kurt, going, well, you guys got to go back out there, you got to do an encore. And he's like, no. He's like, we're not going to top that. That was the end. Like, that's it. We're done. He just like, he argued with them because they were like, you have to go. He's like, you have to do an encore. And he's like, no, he's like, we're not going to do anything better than that last song. That's the end of it. Like,
yeah. And it was, and see, that's the artist knowing better than the TV management team. They want you back out there. Of course they do, because they want to get that extra time.
Of course, yeah.
But when you've peaked. Peaked. Often they'll come back and they'll do their encores, but the encores are planned. If it's planned encore, they're still planning the end of that to be the high note. Almost every band plans their encores. They didn't want an encore for this. That was it. That was what you were
the set
getting.
list was planned out. They're like, this is what we're playing. There's a beginning, middle, end, and that was the crescendo, and we're done.
And what a high note that was. I mean, that was such a brilliant performance.
It's still like I'm getting chills just thinking about it sitting here right now. Like, it was such a good way to end the performance.
Yeah, they only played 3 songs. I was looking at the list. They only played 3 songs of In Utero.
Yeah.
And I'm wondering if how much of that kind of got forced on them, or if that's what they actually wanted to do. Because the rest of the choices for the playlist are so weird and interesting.
Right. But I remember reading some stuff too about how tensions were kind of high within the band, specifically between Kurt and Dave. Because if you notice, so I can find, there's a picture here somewhere. So here Dave is playing these sticks that he's playing with. If you guys don't know, those are known as hot rods, and so they're basically smaller individual little wooden sticks, and the red part is they're kind of like taped together. So the idea, the way they market them, is there's supposed to be some middle ground in between like a normal solid wood drumstick and then like the brushes that like jazz players use to get that like swooshing sound on the snare drum. So they're a little bit softer and stuff. And then of course, Dave's wearing his sweet turtleneck, looking like kind of a nerdy beat. there were a lot of reports and a lot of stories too. And again, it's like maybe this is part of Kurt, coming down from his heroin withdrawals and stuff. Like maybe the drums were just like banging in his head or something. But they'd be rehearsing and they'd be playing a song, and Kurt would like turn around to Dave and like, could you play a little bit softer? And he'd start playing again, like, could you play a little bit soft? And he kept doing that. Or finally, like, there's this one story I read where Dave just like threw his hands in the air and he's like, what am I even doing here? Like,
well, no, I mean, I get it. He did play with brushes for part of the set as well. He kind of just, depending on what he was doing, he would change up. I mean, right there, you can see he's using regular sticks.
But what's funny
he did
is
more
like
of a tap thing. He didn't really do a regular beat during that.
What was funny though is like when I was rewatching the performance on Saturday, you can even see when he's playing, like he's all like hunched up and like tense, and like he's just like trying so hard to like play soft, and I'm like, he looks so uncomfortable this whole time. Like he's just not having a good time.
Yeah,
he's also the only one who sang backup.
Yeah,
which I thought was interesting.
Yeah, that cannot be a good time if you're trying to do your
holding back,
and you're getting balled out by the lead singer. So they'd be like, okay, fuck it, no drums, total acoustic,
yeah, right.
We're have some fucking bongos,
Yeah, and then so like the picture I've got pulled up right now, they talk about how that the set design was also Kurt Cobain's idea, where he specifically asked for it to be decorated with like the flowers and the candles and everything, to which one of the producers asked her like, oh, you mean like a funeral? And his response was exactly like a funeral, which is where people start to try to speculate that they think he kind of knew the headspace that he was in and what he was going to do in April. We're not going to get too deep into that because that's a whole other rabbit hole. I don't believe Kurt Cobain killed himself. If you have not seen it, go seek out the documentary Soaked in Bleach. That's all I have to say about that.
Yes, I agree.
Lots of very interesting information in that about we'll never know for sure. We'll never know for sure, but it definitely shines a bright light on a lot of stuff that kind of makes you go, huh.
Definitely.
There's a few of them out there that I don't believe they took their own lives. Kurt Cobain, Chris Cornell, Chester Bennington, but I digress.
No, I know. There were other, you hear a lot of other things in work that around that stuff.
Yeah. So let's see, what other fun facts do I have here? Or if you guys got something, feel free to chime in. I'm kind of going through my list here.
I got one thing. So you see how Kurt Cobain's wearing the sweater.
Yeah.
One of the next specials that was big after this was Stone Temple Pilots.
Oh, okay.
And the lead singer there had his own problems.
Yeah.
He wanted a sweater, and then he got a rocking chair.
Yes. That was a weird performance.
Yeah. and that was kind of because he was going through his own issues and needed some help to get through it. And this was such a big influence on MTV Unplugged going forward. Like I said, this is like one of the high marks of it. What they did and all that. So, from shows on after this, you had, things that happened here that kind of echoed back into the other. People saw how they did this, and they, wanted it done. There it is.
Okay, yeah. Yeah, Weiland in the chair.
Yeah.
Okay, apparently you can't zoom in on Google Photos, but yeah, I see it. He's got the rocking chair. He's got the interesting. I don't know if I've seen this one
as well. Yeah,
yes, it was.
Man, you get a lot of, because they do, basically they don't really go off track as far as their songs go. They're standard Stone Temple Pilot stuff, but the translation over to acoustic was very nice, and you do get some really good versions of these songs. So like I said, but for the Nirvana take though, the Nirvana songs, this sounds horrible, were the least interesting songs to me for Unplugged or for this recording.
and
Aside
you know,
from
that's
maybe
like I was
About a
saying.
Girl.
And that's what I was saying, like even like the Pearl Jam one, it's like they're all sitting on stools playing acoustic instruments, but still like Eddie Vedder's up there just like rocking out as if they're you know all plugged in
you
with all
gotta
their electric guitars and
bring
stuff.
that
And it was
shit
just so
down.
it was so awkward and like and then Justin brings up a good point. This is another one I was just about to reference was how about the Alice in Chains Unplugged? Lane's emaciated and his eyes are deep in the back of his head, and he wears shades for the majority of the show to hide it. He also screwed up several songs. Yes, so the fun part about that one is if you have the DVD of the Alice in Chains Unplugged, there are a couple of I don't want to say outtakes, but it's like if you listen to the album, if you watch like what aired, they cut out the flubs and the mess ups. But on the DVD, there's one, I think it's the song Sledge Factory, where they started out, he gets into the first verse, and then Lane just kind of yells out an expletive and they all stop. And you even see Jerry look back at Lane and like mouth, but you can clearly read his lips saying, "Are you okay?" And he's like, okay, yeah. And then they restarted the song and they got through it. But yeah, just like Justin saying, he wore sunglasses for a majority of the performance, but the one or two songs where he takes the sunglasses off, you're like, oh God, like you can see the bags under his eyes, and it's like, oh my God. And that was 5 years before he passed. So it's like, I can't imagine how much worse he got.
Yeah, he had a rough downward trip. You go to his last. When they found him, no one had seen him for 2 weeks. It took them 2 weeks to find him.
Well, yeah, I think the way that they finally found him was like somebody in the family had like noticed that like his bank account hadn't been used in a couple weeks or something. There's somebody that like kind of had some mild control of his affairs. It's like, hey, like there's been no transactions or anything for a couple weeks. And that's just sad.
A tough way to go, man.
Yeah.
All those singers,
Well, yeah, I mean, except for the Pearl Jam guy, I don't give a fuck about him. But for
he's still alive, Roman. It's all
to me.
Yeah, a lot of those guys, all the drugs just mess these people up to hell and beyond, and
like Matt was saying here, I think
the three big acts we're talking about. Nirvana, Stone Temple Pilots, and Alice in Chains.
All the singers.
Every one of those motherfuckers is dead.
Yes, exactly.
Such a fucking waste, and that piece of shit Eddie Vedder is still alive.
So you can see here, it's like one of the few times that Lane takes his sunglasses off, and it's like he did not look well. And it's so sad because, like you're saying, it's like all that talent, and they can't overcome their own demons that get them into these habits, But yeah, this one, it's just I appreciated the performances that lent themselves to acoustic songs, because Alice in Chains, I mean, I don't think they did any cover songs. They did all their own songs, but Alice in Chains is one of those bands where, I mean, I don't know, like maybe Jerry started out writing a lot of the riffs and songs on acoustic, and then they would translate it to electric or what, but their music just lent itself to that format so much better, even though they did only do their own songs. But yeah, that one is definitely another. I mean, Alice in Chains and Nirvana are two unplugged performances that were very lightning in a bottle, very special, and their sets were even kind of similar. It's just very dark, lots of candles. Let's see here. There we go. Yeah, they had just kind of a similar vibe.
Yeah,
and then over here, Mike Starr on his bass that says, "Friends don't let friends get friends haircuts," because Metallica was in the audience and they had just all cut their hair.
I remember that when they came out, they're wearing their Cuban pimp suits after they cut their hair, and
well, not a grunge
that's right.
guy.
Yeah.
Also had Shannon Hood die in 1996, as well as the Smashing Pumpkins touring keyboardist. Oh, interesting. Yeah, and unfortunately, you would think that other artists coming around now would look at those that have left us too soon and learn from their
hell no.
lessons. But
No.
I don't claim to know what the lifestyle does to you. I mean, if any of you watched the Elvis movie that came out recently, I mean, obviously it was dramatized, it was actors, it was scripted, it was written, but they kind of depicted, you know, Elvis's lifestyle from a thing of like, it came down to he needed, you know, uppers in the morning and afternoon to get up and do the shows and do his residency in Vegas, and then he needed downers to be able to sleep at night. And it's like you just get in this cycle of, well, this is what I have to do to put on the show, this is what I have to do to feel normal, and it's like, you know. Oh, yes. Sorry. Thank you for correcting me. It was Mike Inez. Mike Starr was the original bassist who left and who has also since passed away.
Oh, gosh. Wow.
Yeah. Sorry. I got that backwards. Thanks for correcting me, Justin.
Yeah. So like all the 80s hairband people and all their problems, you know, all those people seem to, you know, survive it. It was when the grunge group came in the 90s, those people didn't.
Yeah.
I don't know if it was just the mindset of the 80s people just wanted to party and get laid, and the 90s people a little bit more, you know, reflective.
That Seattle scene, I mean, it's a darker deal. I don't, you know why I don't fucking, well, because it's fucking Seattle and they get like 4 days of sunlight up there. That's why.
They get like 2 days of sunshine a year.
Not good. It's not good for you. It's not good for you. And unfortunately, this is where all these bands either came from or ended up. Stone Temple Pilots being the ended up there. They were a San Diego band.
They started here, yeah.
They ended up.
Yeah, they all kind of gravitated up there though, and
it was the scene. It was like San Francisco in the '60s. You know, all the hippie dippy bands ended up there, and then in the '90s, that strange black hole was sucking in all this talent.
Well, who was before Pearl Jam and Nirvana and all these? There was a group called Mudhoney that a lot of these guys were in, and that lead singer died early, I believe, at drug before they broke. And then when that band fractured, everybody exploded. You know, you had Soundgarden, you had Nirvana, you had Pearl Jam, but a lot of those people, if you do like one of those rock and roll history family trees, you see a whole bunch of these people were in that one band. Yeah.
Yeah. Well, and then also a lot of it was like a lot of the guys from Pearl Jam, and then Chris Cornell with some guest appearances of Eddie Vedder. They had the band Temple of the Dog that only ever released the one album. But it was like, I think Soundgarden already existed. And so it was like a side project for Chris Cornell. And then they, you know, brought in like Eddie Vedder sang on a couple songs, but then basically the rest of the rhythm section of Temple of the Dog went to form Pearl Jam. So that was another one where it was just sort of like they got together, they put out one album, and then kind of went their own separate ways. And I always say this about music today now too. I feel like in the 90s and the 2000s, bands were a lot more keen on doing collaborations with. It would be like, oh, it's, you know, this band is putting out an album, but they're gonna have their friends come and like do guest vocals on a song or guitar or whatever. So it's like, I feel like artists and bands don't collaborate like they used to, where you know, back then, like, this is, you guys are kind of roll your eyes at some of these references and stuff, but like in the days of like Korn and Limp Bizkit, it's like the guys in Korn and the guys in Limp Bizkit were friends, and they would constantly feature each other on each other's albums. The guys in Stained and stuff. It's like you were hard pressed to ever find an album that didn't have at least one song of like, okay, Korn with a song featuring Fred Durst, or like Limp Bizkit with a song featuring the guys from Korn. And just like, these guys were friends, and they would like collaborate and would do stuff together and support each other. Now I just feel like everyone's just kind of, it's like a cutthroat industry out there now. Everyone's just trying to make a name for themselves and step on whoever they have to step on.
I don't even know what's new now, though. I don't. For the most
even
part, aside from my age, I have a hard time identifying new music, and I think a lot of that, unfortunately, is the way the medium is now. You don't really have terrestrial radio to speak of. I mean, we do here in San Diego. I listen to 91X. That's our alt rock station. But you know what you hear when you turn on 91X? You hear the 90s. And every now and then
you hear 311.
That I know that must be new, because it sucks and I have no idea what it is. So I'm assuming, oh, that must be a new piece. But it's weird. It's a weird deal.
Yeah. But yeah, Justin, I think like AC/DC, I don't know about the entire band, but I know Angus Young has famously always been sober their entire career. He doesn't drink, he doesn't do drugs. He looks like he does a lot of drugs, but apparently Angus Young doesn't. Aerosmith, I know they had their rough years in probably the 70s and 80s when they kind of resurged in the 90s. I think they were all sober. Van Halen, with the exception of Eddie himself, I don't know what the history was with the rest of the band, but I know Eddie had his rough years and came back around only to eventually die of cancer, unfortunately. But yeah, a lot of those guys, they somehow managed to make it through the 90s, but then you look at people like Nikki Sixx. I think he's like overdosed multiple times, and they've always managed to resuscitate him somehow. Like Ozzy Osbourne, who I don't know how Ozzy is still walking around and breathing. And
he's really not. You know, I mean, he's far older than even his years are. You know, is the sad thing.
Yeah, Justin's right. That was Andrew Wood. Mother Love Bone. That was the band I was thinking of.
Got it. Is that what Temple of the Dog was for? Was when he died? Is that why they put that together?
So here, Matt told us to say Chris Cornell put Temple of the Dog together to honor one of their friends, another musician who had died of a heroin overdose.
I think that's what it. I may be wrong, but I think that was what it was. That was the event for them.
No.
So hey, I've only got about 13 minutes I can hang, which, you know, that's like 7 years on the interweb. But I did want to ask, just because I know I have mine on this, what are your favorite tracks off of this?
Ooh, let me pull up the track listing here because I gotta right off the top of my head before I even look it up. Lake of Fire is definitely a big one.
Mm-hmm.
Love Lake of Fire. I think I would say probably that, like Lake of Fire and Where Did You Sleep Last Night are two big major high points for me.
The Bowie cover and it's about all I remember from it.
Really? So you've got About a Girl, which was the one off Bleach, which I actually do like. That Come As You Are was fine. It was, for me, it's basically a throwaway track. Just
that was
terrible.
I think that was them trying to satisfy the producers.
And
yeah, it's fun. I didn't care about that.
Jesus Don't Want Me for a Sunbeam. That is a great track. He just leans into the whole thing. It is just such a fun take on this. I think it's an old spiritual that someone else they did, and they do it like them. Is the way he introduced it. It's just, and then of course, The Man Who Sold the World. I love Penny Royalty. Fine. Again, that was just Kurt on his guitar. Dumb.
And Poly, something in the way. Something in the way was really good because it just makes you want to hum along when it's something.
And that's but you're right.
Like you just want to hum along with it. Like
that lends itself really well to this format.
Yeah.
I think better than Penny Royalty that did as well though. Plateau. So was it Plateau? Me and Lake of Fire are all meat puppets, which is interesting. You got a third of the album a fourth of the album is fucking meat puppets. All Apologies. I don't even remember All Apologies, which is weird. But then Where Do You Sleep Last Night? That is such a powerhouse.
That was the crescendo. That was the end where he was like, no encore. Like this.
Yeah,
that's
man.
It. And even Justin, same thing. He said it was fantastic. You can just hear the pain in his voice, which I wonder if that was a little bit of him like actually taking a jab at his wife. Like, hey, like, can you answer this question?
Not. I actually, Justin, I like the Black Keys as well, though. What's the El Camino? I like El Camino a lot. I think it's a fantastic album. Song for song, that's a real powerhouse. Black Submarines is my favorite song on that album. But
I play that at some of my gigs sometimes.
It's a great song.
It's a good
the
song.
problem with Black Keys is, and this you have a lot of bands like this. After I listen to them for a while, and if I listen to a different album, all I hear is the Black Keys. I know it sounds a little bit weird, but I no longer hear the individual tracks. El Camino really stands out for its songs. The other ones, it's basically just it's a Black Keys album. Okay, and that's fine.
They are good though. Like I hear what you're saying about them. It's like they are talented, and the fact that it's just like a 2-man show. I mean, I think when they tour, they have at least maybe a third member touring.
No, they got a normal
But the
band
fact
when
that
they
it's
tour, like a lot of those guys.
the fact that
have
it's
to.
just 2 dudes doing all that for the most part, like they are talented. But yeah, I kind of feel that same way where I like their music, I recognize their talent, but it does kind of after a while it's like, okay, like it just sounds like the Black Keys. Like,
Yeah.
you know.
Yeah, and I don't think we'll probably ever see, certainly within my lifetime, the 4 days to 7 months.
You don't have
that-
much
that
longer
is.
left. You know?
We don't have anything like this anymore. Like MTV's Unplugged. Well, MTV doesn't
No.
really exist. Certainly not not in the way that it used to. But this was such a beautiful way to get exposed to bands. For new fans and old fans, you got this weird and wonderful performance out of someone, and you could go and investigate them after that. We can do it better now today as far as that part of it goes. But back in the day, you still had ways. But you've lost this format.
Well, and to, like, even to a little bit of a lesser degree, I remember when VH1 had their Storyteller series, which is kind
Yeah,
of
I
like
remember
their
those.
version. It was the same kind of thing. It was like, it didn't necessarily mean the performance had to be unplugged, but it was usually a more stripped down performance where they would play a song, they would kind of tell the story behind writing it, like the 90s
was
were
a
just
bit
a
more
time for this
deep
where
dive,
you do a little
There's
more
so
of a
much
deep
good shit.
dive into the artist's music, because we didn't have Wikipedia back then, so you had to watch these shows and watch these specials and hear these people tell you the stories from their own mouths. And we've kind of lost that now. Everything's just it's kind of ironic saying this on YouTube, but everyone's just trying to get their stuff out there on YouTube and say, hey, everybody, look at me. And it's like, I've done streams in the past to talk warning of like the dangers of musicians being able to use AI to write music, and Billy Corgan came out, a year or two ago, like a couple of years ago, before this was really, and I feel like AI really just like snuck in just like overnight. Like we started kind of hearing some rumors about AI coming up, and then all of a sudden just like boom, like it's everywhere, and you can't tell what's real and what's AI anymore. Billy Corgan warned about this years ago, where he was like, are we gonna care about actual human beings writing music, or are we just gonna be like, oh, like some teenager just punch an algorithm into a computer and put out a hit song, and it's catchy and I can tap my toes to it and stuff? But it's like, do we actually really care about art and songwriting, or is it just going to be like, whatever, like let people write songs using AI? Like, we're going down a weird path.
Well, Trent Reznor talked about how you don't need a record company anymore. Everybody can do their own producing, make their own music, even get it out there. But are you seeing a lot of great music?
Put my own music on Spotify. Yeah, I could probably put I could record something on the same microphone that I'm talking to you guys through right now, and it would be the most piss poor quality, but I could just pay a fee and upload it on Spotify and be like, here you go, here's my music. And like, anyone can put their music out there now.
But you now, so it's I guess it's a good and bad. Anybody can do it. That's fine. If you don't have a lot of money, but you still want to put together, a good recording, and you can actually, people
Oliver
do
Anthony
good recordings as well, putting them out there. But the problem is, Oliver Anthony is such a standout because he broke through somehow through all these millions of artists, layers of noise, which is what you have out there now. This guy managed to break through that. And that's one of the things about the business that's gotten rough, is that you don't have the promotion of artists. And granted, that was a fucking often a pay-for-play scheme, but you heard them on the radio, bands like Muse or whatever back in the day. And you're like, oh, I like that band. I want to go find more, find that band, buy their album. Now, I don't even know how to fucking do that. I don't know how to find new stuff. One, I don't know how much of it's actually getting out there because the music industry has changed so much.
And you also don't know how much of it is actually worth listening to.
Well, yeah, because you only have so much time. You can sit on Spotify and look for the weird and wonderful because you like this, you might like this, and sometimes you do find stuff. You find that. But the problem with me, what I've noted, is that when I find something that relates to something I like, it's not a new artist. It's just someone that I don't know. A band called
Right.
Federale. It's just they're an older band, but they're really cool. So it's hard, man. Finding new music, finding something like I said, if they still had something like Nirvana, if some I don't even know who would be broadcasting it now, would showcase either bands that people like, real bands, actual bands. I don't mean a singer with an auto tune and a bunch of showgirls behind them. I mean actual 3, 4, or 5 person bands playing their fucking instruments. Something like Nirvana, or you have an established band, and this is our featured artist. We're going to get 3 songs out of them. Let's see what you think. Fucking Anthony Bourdain. I found music on his show that I never would have found any other way, just because he would every now and then have a band just because he wanted to see the fucking music. And then I was like, man, that's a really cool fucking band. So, Nirvana's Unplugged, you're not going to, again, maybe I'm wrong, but you're not going to see something like this again because it's high production value. You're getting something that looks great, that has a really nice sound to it. You're not getting some wonky, shitty, guy in his backyard sound, but you're getting something unique because these are tracks that the studio didn't want them to play, but the band wanted to play. And it's just such an interesting package together.
The fact that they pushed back and said, no, this is what we want to do, and they allowed him to do it, because it's like, what was the alternative if they pushed back? And
well, I guess Nirvana's leaving.
If MTV pushed back, like I said earlier, Kurt was already like within 24 hours of the performance. Kurt Cobain was totally like, I'm not doing it. I'm not showing up. So then all of a sudden they're like, well, what do we do? And then he showed up day of, like, all right, let's do this thing. But like if MTV had pushed back, and then if they were just like, fine, like we're gonna walk. Like I don't know what the contract was. I don't know if they would have.
Yeah.
Gotten,
Who pissed off Nirvana? Who pissed off Nirvana?
I don't know if like they could have like fined them or something for not fulfilling a contract. I don't know what the contract was, but it's like they totally could have just thrown their hands in the air and said, we're not doing the show. So as much as they didn't like it, they let Nirvana do what they wanted to do, and it's the reason why we're talking about this performance right now. It's the reason
30
why
years
30 years later it's such a special moment. It's such a special performance that it's like they said, okay, we're gonna let you do what you want to do. And it was unique, it was different, it is timeless, it's long standing. Like it's 30 years later, we got 3 guys sitting in their homes talking about it, and it was just like why it was such an important and such a special performance. And even from so like when I was posting on Twitter earlier, I don't think I'll ever not call it Twitter, Matt had commented also saying that yes, like the Alice in Chains performance was equally, if not more important. And I'm not going to argue like which one was better, which one, they're both amazing. Alice in Chains one was amazing, the Nirvana one was amazing. But what I said in the comments on Twitter was that I think one of the key things that makes the Nirvana performance a little bit extra special is that because Kurt died so shortly after the airing of this, after the recording, and because this was recorded in November, aired in December.
4 months.
He died later. 4 or 5 months later in April. So just the fact that it was like this was such a major pivotal moment in the career of the band, and then Kurt Cobain is gone. We don't know what the future could have held for Nirvana as a band, Kurt Cobain as an artist. Like, would he have gone on and done solo albums? Would the band have done an acoustic album like in a studio? I wish I could have found it, but again, digging through the interwebs, it's sometimes you see something and then it's gone forever and you can't find it. I remember seeing an interview. It was like one of the last interviews that Kurt Cobain did before his passing, where he was just like talking about how he's like, I picture myself growing to be, an old man, just like sitting on my front porch with an acoustic guitar and stuff. So I just like, I wonder, I kind of wonder what direction, the band would have gone, but then also like, would he have done solo
as
albums
far as the individual
aside?
groups?
Would he have just
if
gone
he had
out and
left
released
and
an
done his
album
own
just as
thing,
Kurt Cobain? And so I
Grohl
think
could have still
the
done what he did.
the unknown factor of what Kurt Cobain could have been, what Nirvana might have become after this, I think it's that like extra little bit of unknown of this could have been like a major step forward of like maybe something that they were like dabbling in and like sticking their toe in the water, but the world will never know. So while as the Alice in Chains performance is equally fantastic and wonderful and special, they had already kind of had their issues and had kind of fizzled because of Lane's deteriorating state. They managed to get it together, do this show. I think they maybe tried to do some other tours. They never released another album with Lane, and then he passed in 2001. Really creepily enough, on the same day as Kurt Cobain, years apart, but Kurt Cobain and Lane Staley died on the same day in April.
Oh,
really
I didn't
weird.
know that. Was it the 4th or the 6th?
Weird.
It was either the 4th or the 6th. If I'm not mistaken.
I forget the exact
One of those
day, but I just know that it was like Kurt was 94, Lane Staley, I think it was 2001, but it was the same day in April, and that's really freaking weird. But anyways, Roman, you got to take off. What do you got going on this week, buddy?
So tomorrow, oddly enough, I got a Tuesday activity. I'll be on over with Left Eye Ego. I believe we're going on at 5. Which I know, Jacob. I know it's a competing time period. It's all we could work out though. But it's not the same kind of show. We're doing an action figure unboxing show. It's our last big one of the year, just because we've got a pile up of action figures to open up. So those are always fun. About an hour or two grown men opening toys and having a good time. And then Thursday is my last planned show of the year. We're going to be doing our favorite Christmas movies. Again, 5 Pacific Standard on Thursday, normal time slot. There might be something else that pops up, but that's the last big plan show. And we've got special guests. Pops is going to be on, Know Me the Only, and the Ginger Ninja, our good friend James Harris from across the sea, as well as a lot of our regulars of the Empire. So thanks for having me on. Thanks for letting me take part in this discussion. And I love this one. So.
And actually, I was saying, like, we've kind of like reached the hour mark, and I think I've kind of run through my bullet points. So I think we're actually just about ready to maybe end this thing. But again, if you got to leave like right now, you can take off. But I think I'm going to kind of shut it down. So
kitchen is calling. So I get you. You better get in here. I'm going to beat you to death with a frying. So, all right, everyone. Thanks for hanging out with us, and my Blair and John. Great seeing you guys as always. I'll see you
later, Roman.
Yep. You have a very Merry Christmas and a Happy New Year, and try not to drink too much.
I don't know what you mean.
So with that,
every day with something in his hand.
But yeah, so I think with that, like I said, I think we're kind of winding down, getting ready to end this thing out. And I know I said obviously you're kind of on a little more of a limited time strain as well. So do you have anything else coming up? Any other live streams you're joining in on? Or
no, I'm just gonna take it easy this year, and then next year we'll kick it back up again. But yeah,
hit it hard in January.
Yeah, just kind of be chill for December and the holidays, be with the families and all that. So
sounds good. I know it's crazy to think that let's see what, so a week from today will be Christmas Day.
I know. I suck at my shit.
Just kind of snuck up on us, but me, I'm like, I went and saw my family for Thanksgiving, so now I'm just kind of like, well, like I'm just gonna be here and like,
yeah, Christmas by yourself are kind of low key, aren't they?
Yeah, it'll be all right though. We'll find something to occupy myself with, but Yeah, man, it's so good to see you. Thank you so much for being on today.
Thanks for having
glad
me.
to hear that you are on the mend and things are going well. Definitely hope to have you on the show more now that hopefully you're saying things maybe kind of calm down a little more after the new year and kind of go back to normal a little bit.
Yeah,
But,
that'd be great.
Yeah, like I said, it's kind of funny to think this is like the first time we've been on together since we met in person, and that was, what was that, October, I think? Or
Yeah, toward the end of October, right before Halloween.
Yeah.
I met you.
Oh,
in
that's right.
Romance.
Yeah, because I remember you went back and you sent us the picture. Like, remember that Halloween weather, and it was snowing, but here it was hot. But it's still hot. Like yesterday and today, like all weekend, it was like it's been in the 80s here, and I'm just like, I'm so tired of this.
That was the only time it snowed. After that, it's been like 40s and kind of drizzle rain. We're not going to we're not going to get a white Christmas this year. We might not even get any more snow, really.
No. Yeah, when I just saw my folks for Thanksgiving, I came home on a Monday, and I think like 2 or 3 days later they got a little bit of snow, and I was like, man, I just missed it. But they get like a dusting of snow. You can still drive on it, like they don't get buried in it. Like, yeah. All right, well, cool. Yeah, I think we're gonna go ahead and shut this thing down. But like again, so good to finally see you. Good to talk to you again, and I hope you and your family have a wonderful Christmas and a very happy New Year. And we'll see you again soon.
Thank you. Merry Christmas, everybody. Happy New Year.
Merry Christmas.